As of 2020, the world's religious population is 6.4 billion. Among them, Christianity has the largest number of about 2.4 billion, followed by Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. All religions have one thing in common that they ultimately pursue. It is the expectation of the afterlife. In other words, they have a view of salvation. We briefly compared the views on salvation of the world's four major religions: Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. First, in Islam, Allah weighs human actions on a scale to determine salvation. People of other religions go to hell without fail, and those who practice jihad by sacrificing their lives for Allah can go directly to heaven. Salvation in Hinduism is the concept of becoming one with the universe. Through meditations such as yoga, a person can realize transcendental mystical knowledge and gain salvation through liberation. Buddhism considers deliverance from reincarnation to reach nirvana as salvation. It is possible through meditation. What all three religions have in common is that salvation requires deed. By the way, Christianity is different from the other three religions. In Christianity, it is said that if a person does not believe in Jesus, he will never be saved. No matter how many good deeds he does, he cannot go to heaven unless he believes in Jesus. If we compare the religious leaders, the differences become clearer. Islam has a religious leader named Muhammad, but he only called himself a messenger of Allah. He didn't ask person to believe him. Siddhartha Gautama also did not tell people to believe in him. Hinduism does not have a person who can be called a religious leader. What about Jesus, the Christian religious leader? First, Jesus called himself the way, the truth, and the life. He also claimed that he had the authority to forgive people's sins and that he was the Lord of the Sabbath. In short, Jesus is claiming that people should believe in him because he is God. Man has no right to get rid of sin, and no right to be the master of the Sabbath, but Jesus claims that because he is God, he has all these rights. Jesus, who claims to be God himself. How do we verify that claim is true? There is a surest way. It's a way to make sure that the resurrection of Jesus is true. Jesus predicts that he will be resurrected 3 days after he is killed. All human beings are dead, and if anyone is resurrected, he is not human, but God. Depending on the authenticity of Jesus' resurrection, we can see if Jesus is a god or a liar. To determine if the resurrection is real, we first need to see if the documents that record it are reliable. It is the New Testament. Among the New Testament, the 4 Gospels, which record the resurrection of Jesus, were written between AD 50 and 100. The earliest of these Gospels is the Gospel of Mark. In Mark 13:18, the words "pray that this may not happen in the winter" come out. The thing here refers to the capture of Jerusalem. It is the contents of the hope that the Jewish temple, Jerusalem, which was under Roman rule at the time, would not be captured. According to the Jewish historian Josephus, the fall of Jerusalem occurred at AD 70. From this record, we come to know that the Gospel of Mark was written at least before 70 AD. Jesus is said to have died around AD 33 to 35. This means that the Gospel of Mark was recorded within 40 years of Jesus' death. In other words, the Gospel of Mark means that those who witnessed Jesus were recorded when they were alive. The reliability of the Bible becomes more evident when compared to other documents. Homer's Iliad is the most reliable book in human history. Written around 900 BC, the Iliad has 643 manuscripts. Also, the first copy was discovered 500 years after the original was written down. What about the Bible? There are 24,633 copies of the New Testament. The complete copy was completed around AD 100, and the first copy was discovered 25 years after original was written. If you look at the error rate of the two books, the Iliad is 5% and the Bible is 0.5%, so the Bible is 8,000 times more accurate. On the premise that the Bible is a trustworthy book, we will check the authenticity of the resurrection of Jesus. For the resurrection to be true, 3 conditions are necessary. First, Jesus must die, there must be no body, and there must be someone who has seen the resurrection. First of all, the death of Jesus was recorded by several historians. The Jewish historian Josephus mentions the death of Jesus in Antiquities of the Jews, and the Roman historian Tacitus also mentions the death of Jesus in his Chronicles. Second, it's time to find the body of Jesus. There are 2 places known as Jesus' tomb. The first is the Garden Tomb Church. An American broadcaster directly visited church to find the body, but could not find the body. The other is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built by Empress Helena, mother of Emperor Constantine in Rome, in AD 325. There is no body of Jesus. Finally, we need to look at those who saw the resurrection. Representatives of those who claim to have seen the resurrection are the disciples of Jesus. 11 of the 12 disciples of Jesus were martyred while preaching the resurrection. In particular, Peter, the representative of the disciples, carried the cross upside down and died as a martyr. Peter was a disciple who denied Jesus 3 times before Jesus died on the cross, fearing that he would be killed too. The fact that such Peter died preaching the resurrection of Jesus shows that the resurrection really did happen. The Apostle Paul is also a representative witness of the resurrection of Jesus. Before believing in Jesus, Paul was the one who killed those who believed in Jesus. He meets the resurrected Jesus on the road, and lived a completely different life. Paul preaches the resurrection of Jesus even in the midst of life threats, such as being imprisoned and being flogged. Paul, too, is said to have been martyred for preaching the resurrection. James, the younger brother of Jesus, is also an important witness to the resurrection. The Bible records that James did not believe in Jesus when Jesus was alive. But at some point, James became a completely different person. James led the first General Assembly in Jerusalem and was executed for believing in Jesus. Josephus, in his Antiquities of the Jews, recorded that James was sentenced to death by Annas, the governor of Judea, for believing in Jesus. There is no convincing claim to explain James' change and death other than the claim that he saw the resurrection of Jesus. The last witnesses to the resurrection of Jesus are women. The Bible explains that the first witness of the resurrection was a woman. In the Roman era, 2,000 years ago, when the Bible was written, women's testimony was not accepted as legal evidence. The reason why the Bible recorded women as the first witnesses of the resurrection is because the resurrection actually happened. If the resurrection is true, we come to know 2 things. First, the formula that Jesus is God is established. That leads to the formula that only Christianity is the truth. Second, those who believe in Jesus can know that he will be resurrected like Jesus after he dies. The fact that the body dies but the soul is resurrected and goes to heaven, and Jesus showed that fact first.